So for Twitter, look, very positive, obviously, but for me, I would have liked to see, I want to see really how they're growing in the U.S. versus international. We know that less than 1/4 of their users are U.S. So even though we've seen an increase in their ad revenues, I want to make sure that we're seeing that higher growth, particularly as we head into the U.S. election. We want to make sure that platform is clean, that they've really got it organized. We saw them, increase operating costs to make sure that it's secure. I still see it as a turnaround story. I'm not getting in just yet. I think they've still got a lot of issues hanging over. 1/4 doesn't convince it for me just yet. And I really want to see how the makeup is between the international and U.S. users in the call.
So even in the call, if they were to tell you that this was led by the U.S., you'd still be skeptical in terms of being ready to buy in just yet?
Yeah, just because they're still struggling with organizing. The video content, that was also another positive news. I think that's something that's really growing, but I'm not convinced just yet.
Alex, what do you think? Your takeaway on this? This was important and definitely a step along the way. But is it enough?
Yeah, there's an old saying in Silicon Valley here that if you're going to move the goalpost, you better kick it through. And I think that's what Twitter did. It used to report monthly active users. Now it's going to monetizable daily active users. It needed to grow that number in order for us to have faith in it, and it did. It went from 126 million daily active users to 134. That's pretty impressive, 11% growth. So I think it's been a good quarter for Twitter.
Alex, are they able to now finesse the numbers a little bit by stating this monetizable daily active user rather than the outright daily active user number going forward? And also they'll retire the outright monthly active user number after this month.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a finesse. And I think what Twitter's really doing here is a subtweet of Snapchat. Snapchat will come in and talk about its daily active user base, but they can't make money off of each one of them. A lot of people jump in and they just use the chat function. So this is Twitter trying to tell the market, hey, we might have fewer daily active users, but at least we're making money off of them.
Aaron, the one thing I'll point out is the stock's up by 7.2% this morning. So there are certainly some believers.
No. And look, it's a highly volatile stock. It's been relatively depressed especially after such a disappointing last quarter. It's not but for me, look, this is a growth stock. This is somebody that needs to just blow it out. I mean, we're talking, it's trading at 40 times earnings. We're not talking about valuation. We're talking about momentum and growth. And I just think anytime that you're still talking about a potential turnaround, still working on the platform, for me and for my investors, it's too high of a risk.
What's fair value?
I mean, look, when you're talking, there's no such thing as fair value with growth, right? I'm not even looking at valuations with this type of stock. I just want really significant growth. And when you're still talking about growth in the teens,
what would you have to see to recommend
this
to investors then? If there is no valuation with which you think that there's a sort of model
I want to see profit growth in the teens for next year, and I want to see a real turnaround where they're not having to increase operating cost, where we're stabilizing operating cost, so that the platform is actually stable and they've got a control on the user account.
You like Snap or Facebook or anybody else?
Facebook, yeah.
You'll take
Snap.
Facebook?
I'll take Facebook.
Because there's real metrics you can put behind it?
Yeah, exactly.
Alex, what kind of innovations do you want to hear from Twitter? And is that key to the story going forward, or do the numbers and metrics today suggest that they can just leave things as they are?
Yeah, the stuff I'm looking for is not the stuff they're talking about. Today, in the shareholder letter, I read Twitter talk about its project to make conversations better, to talk about how conversations are Twitter's superpower. I mean, guys, you've been around since 2006 and you're still trying to figure out conversations? They are a news platform. And how about a product strategy that centers around news? So there's so many different things Twitter can do around news, whether it's to create a standalone news app or to improve its Explore experience. But instead, they're focusing on conversations. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and I really think that if you're going to be bullish on Twitter, you want to see product innovation in the news space, which we've seen a little bit of, but I don't think enough.
Julia? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, is Apple News a threat to them, Alex?
Absolutely. Anytime you see a tech giant getting in the news space, that's a threat to Twitter. In fact, I would say that a big part of its resurgence has come due to the fact that Facebook has pulled back from news, giving Twitter this wide open swath of territory that it could jump in. It's done a great job exploiting that, but it really has to keep pushing in order to make sure that the big competitors that are coming in to try to push it out of that space don't have a chance.
Julia?
Yeah, just to go back to Aaron's original concern about U.S. versus international, they actually disclose how many people are using their service on a daily basis in the U.S. versus international. There are 28 million daily active users, these MDAUs. That's up 8%, but they are growing faster internationally with 12% international growth. But what I think is really interesting here is they made this big announcement last quarter that they were going to be shifting away from the monthly users because the monthly users were flat or down, and we'd had over a year of declining monthly active users. Every quarter, the numbers would decline. And now we're seeing by just focusing on these daily users, they are able to grow engagement. That's really what the daily active users are about. They're taking those monthly users and giving them reason to come back every day because the platform is not as polluted with either bots or these offensive news, which they've tried so hard to clean up, and the sort of trolling of people. So it seems like Dorsey is really focused on making this an easier to use platform. And to me, whether they create a separate news app is a separate thing because is a separate question because Twitter really is supposed to be about news and conversation about news. And if they can make it more effective, they wouldn't need to create a whole separate thing.